Welcome to the 2024 House District 30B Candidate Forum. Candidate Paul Bolin and candidate Paul Novotny are both present. I'm Julie Trude, the forum moderator and a member of the League of Women Voters of Anoka, Blaine, Coon Rapids area, the sponsor of this forum. I live in Andover and cannot vote for either of these candidates. The forum is being recorded for online streaming. Taped forums will be found on the Vote 411 website hosted by the League of Women Voters, the League of Women Voters ABC website, LWV ABC, and the LWV ABC YouTube channel. Editing is only authorized for official media reporting purposes. Edited clips of candidate forums may not be used for political or partisan purposes. Voters' questions were submitted online for the candidates in recent weeks. The League of Women Voters does not support or oppose any political parties or candidates for office. The League hosts forums to inform voters, and we encourage you to vote. Welcome candidates for Minnesota House District 30B. We will start with 2 questions provided in advance, and then we will alternate who begins first. And we'll start with candidate Bolin. Our first question is background, and we'll have each candidate allowed 90 seconds to answer. Candidate Bolin, what is your motivation to run for this office, and what experience or knowledge would help you to serve effectively?
So I got into this race because I feel that we have a lack of representation that is responsive to our needs. Right now we have single party control of all of the representation that includes state senate, state legislature in our area. And what that means is that the candidates, or the representatives and the lone senator are unresponsive to the needs of our community and are more responsive to the needs of their party. And so what I believe that means that our district needs is representation that is responsive to voters. And so I got into this because initially my background is in medicine. And in medicine, we always have to be responsive to the needs of individual people. That's what our job is. And so with those communication skills, with that ability to build consensus, I feel that this is going to lead to more effective representation at the Capitol, not only for our district, but also to make sure that we are bridging the partisan gap, which is the source of so many woes and agony in our state system from both sides of the aisle.
Thank you. I'll repeat the question. Candidate Novotny, what is your motivation to run for this office, and what experience or knowledge would help you to serve effectively?
Thank you. I was nearing the end of my 33-year career with the Sherman County Sheriff's Office and was planning on retiring at the normal retirement age when the sitting representative stepped down and announced that there would be a special election. Now, that representative, Nick Zerwas, had always been the voice of public safety and stood up for public safety workers in the state of Minnesota, and I thought that there would be a huge void. I grew up on a family farm near here. I used to ride my bike to Nowthen to do church softball in the old wood grandstand that was at this end of the parking lot here. And I've always been a private, sit in the back row kind of person. And then I decided to become public and put my address on huge signs all over the place. But I thought it was important. It was important to have that representation at the state. And given the circumstances of my election, I was first elected in 2020, and that was right before the COVID crisis hit. And that created several public safety issues. And then obviously at the end of session in 2020, we had the George Floyd incident in Minneapolis, and there was a dramatic change in reimagining and how public safety was done in the state of Minnesota. My background with use of force and all the training background at the sheriff's office, I think, gave me a unique edge. Currently the minority lead on public safety, and I continue to use that experience.
Thank you. And now we have a second introductory question, and we'll start with candidate Novotny. What are your goals for the future of Minnesota House District 30B? And you have 90 seconds again.
My goals for 30B are the same as they are for the rest of the state, that everyone is able to live and get through their daily life without fear of crime. And I want them to know that they can do this without paying extra taxes. I want to cut taxes, and I want to make this a state where people stay in. My two adult daughters are both currently living in the area. My oldest daughter has a job that she could easily move out of the state. I'm worried that she'll be taxed out. She's recently married. I hope to have grandchildren I can have close to me and take care of. I want to make a state of Minnesota where those grandchildren can stay close and live and thrive. And I hope they stay in the Elk River School District too. I'm a third generation Elk River, and there's members of my family that were already into the fifth generation. It's a tradition, and I want to keep it here, and I want to make this the place that everyone wants to stay.
Thank you. Candidate Bolin, what are your goals for the future of Minnesota House District 30B?
So I grew up in the Elk River area. My dad grew up in Elk River. He's a union tradesman. My mom grew up on a farm in Zimmerman. My family has been living in the area for well over 100 years. I hear the concerns of constituents in this area, and the concerns that I hear are primarily relate to people's ability to live their daily lives. We have women that are concerned about a national abortion ban, about what would happen if Republicans got into control in the legislature and the governor's mansion, God forbid. People are concerned about these kitchen table issues. Right now, Minnesota is one of the best places to do business in the entire state. We rank number 3 as far as rankings to do business. We do have a high corporate tax rate, but that being said, if you go just down the road 15 miles to Maple Grove, you'll see that Boston Scientific is building a $170 million campus. So clearly, business is doing quite well in Minnesota. We're drawing people in, and one of the reasons that we're drawing people in is that we are a beacon for freedom in this country. That includes the right to make choices about your own body. And of the 2 candidates sitting here, I am the only candidate who will defend your right to keep and bear arms, and also the right of you and your family to have medical privacy, and that includes the right to make decisions about your own body.
Thank you. And now our questions will begin with candidate Bolin. A 1-minute question, and this is maybe a little hard because it's about a big issue. What is the biggest issue facing the state legislature in the coming session, and how would you address it?
Right now, we need to get the cost of prescription medications for seniors down. It is absolutely reprehensible that in the richest country in the world, in one of the richer states in the country, that we have senior citizens who have to choose between filling their medication and putting food on the table. And this is something that I have seen over and over again in my career in medicine, is that people are faced with these tough decisions. And so one of the things that I would like to see the state do is to negotiate the costs of medications to reduce these costs that are such a burden on the lives of not only seniors who are trying to live their golden years with some financial security, but also families who have a number of other things and expenses that they need to juggle. So getting those costs of prescription medications down, I think, is a quick thing that we can do in the legislature to bring some relief to families.
Thank you. Candidate Novotny, what is the biggest issue facing the state legislature in the coming session, and how would you address it?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say the news that I'm not going to stand up for the second amendment is a surprise to me. I'm endorsed by the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus and the National Rifle Association. what is my focus? It's that we need to cut cost. We don't have one of the higher tax rates for corporations in the nation. We have the highest corporate tax rate. We have almost the highest sales tax rate. We have, we're in the top 10 for income tax rates. Overall, we're 5th highest in the nation on taxes. So my number one priority when we get there, cut property taxes, cut taxes across the board, including my plan to have a cap on raising of property tax values, a cap on overall public property tax raises, and a freeze for the taxes on seniors so they're not taxed out of their homes.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with candidate Novotny. Residents have concerns about protecting the rural lifestyle they enjoy, especially as they hear debates about reduced housing density elsewhere. As a state legislator, what role can you play to help preserve rural communities?
Well, that's a good question. We're sitting here at Nowthen, and if you don't know, Nowthen and Oak Grove have exemptions from the Met Council for being forced to observe the Met Council's housing density rules and zoning. I have fought ever since taking over 30B, the Nowthen and Oak Grove areas under redistricting to stand up for Nowthen and Oak Grove. Now, this is one of the things where party politics will come in. The representative that is in charge of government affairs, Representative Elkins from Bloomington, he's in charge of Met Council, and he has continuously had bills in the House that have sought to take Nowthen and Oak Grove back into Met Council control. That's one of the things we're against, fought against, and if we get control of the House in the under the majority, if the Republicans get control of the House, that's one of the things I will stand against and block.
Thank you. Now, candidate Bolin, the same question. Residents have concerns about protecting the rural lifestyle they enjoy, especially as they hear debates about reduced housing density elsewhere. As a state legislator, what role can you play to preserve rural communities?
Well, I just want to go back and clarify. I recognize my opponent's strong stance on defending our Second Amendment rights. It's a position that the two of us share. My point was that I'm the only candidate who will defend both your freedom to own and use a gun and your freedom to privacy in your doctor's office, as we have had for so long. When it comes to the rural communities that we live in, I have grown up in a rural community my entire life. It is quickly becoming suburban, but I grew up getting mail to my house that said rural resident. So this is an area and it's a topic that I care very deeply about. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of space in between my opponent and I. I strongly believe in local control, and I will oppose any efforts to bring the state in to control areas like ours. I believe that our area should continue to be under the control of the county and the city councils.
Thank you. And now we start with candidate Bolin on this next question. Do you support a Minnesota Equal Rights Amendment?
Depending on the text within that Equal Rights Amendment, I may. This would very much depend on exactly what the text says. However, an Equal Rights Amendment would go to the voters. And I strongly believe that the voters deserve the right to governance over themselves. As we've seen across the country, when voters have the ability to choose on issues like abortion, they choose freedom. However, there are a number of states like Tennessee, states like Texas, where the people want the freedom to make decisions about their own body, but who stands in the way? The Republican legislators stand in the way. And so the question that I have for Minnesotans when it comes to the Equal Rights Amendment, who do you want in charge of making these big decisions. Do you want to have the ability to make that decision on a referendum, or do you want the Republican Party to constantly stand in the way and block any kind of reform or rights that you, especially you women, deserve?
Thank you. Candidate Novotny, do you support a Minnesota Equal Rights Amendment?
As Mr. Bolin stated, it depends on the language. The bill that was in the House last year, I would not support. The people that are there supporting it want to say it's like the 1970s Equal Rights Amendment. I spent my entire career as a law enforcement officer responding to any situation, any call for help. I didn't ask who you prayed for, who you loved, or how you voted. I continue to do that. I would be the first one to stand up for anyone that wanted to violate anyone else's rights and treat anyone unfairly. That being said, if you think that the Equal Rights Amendment that was in the last legislative session is what your grandmothers were pushing, it's not. Read the language. If it were truly freedom for all and equal treatment for all, I'd be absolutely for it.
Thank you. Our next question is candidate Novotny. How would you make yourself available to hear concerns of citizens of your district?
I am available all the time now. When one of the things that I found when someone is strongly opposed to one of the sides that I'm on, that the best thing we can do is sit down and have a cup of coffee. If you go to look at my Facebook page or my Twitter accounts, you'll find that I don't post, I don't fight, I don't do anything that is controversial, because I don't think that helps anything. One of the best things you can do is make that phone call, or if you can't work it out, offer that cup of coffee. And you'll find out that a lot of the times it's just a misunderstanding, or that you can agree on 80 or 90% of an issue. And I'll take 80 or 90% and consider that a goal, as opposed to being mad or angry at someone over the 10 or 15% that we don't get along on.
Thank you. Candidate Bolin, how would you make yourself available to hear concerns of citizens of your district?
So nowadays, there are so many ways that politicians and representatives can get in touch with members of the community. And I tend to be pretty old-fashioned with this stuff. I value the ability to meet face-to-face with people in our community, but there are increasingly older people who are using social media because it is a way to get in touch with not only loved ones, but also with public servants. And so, you know, it's an all of the above approach. Absolutely making sure that we are available for town halls and for meeting constituents face to face, but also innovative methods that we can use to get in touch with constituents, including Facebook Reels and virtual town halls. There's so many more things that we can do to make sure that we have a representative that is available to the people beyond what we're doing now.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on. I think we'll do 90 seconds on the next one, because we are getting into tax policy. In the past few years, the price, and this will go to candidate Bolin first. In the past few years, the price of groceries, auto insurance, and more have risen. The state of Minnesota has increased spending. What are your views on current state tax policies? What can be improved?
So right now we are sitting at a budget surplus, which is a good thing. Now we need to look at that. The question is, are we taxing people too much? Is there relief that we can provide either by tax rates or through a rebate? But it needs to be recognized that this is a good thing. There are states that have to spend in deficit when a problem comes up. Right now we have a surplus. That can go into a rainy day fund, and that is important. As we know, we saw in 2020, things happen. And we need to make sure that we have the resources available for that. Now, I do not support any sort of tax increase whatsoever on families making under $400,000 a year. I will oppose any tax increase along those lines. However, I do think that there are wealthier people who do need to pay their fair share. And that is the only way that we will be able to sustain the public resort or the public services, which so many of us do take for granted. You know, when we call the police or we call the fire department or we need medical assistance, those things are available for us, and we take those for granted. So we need to make sure that we have the revenue to continue to do that, but also I do recognize that we do need to reduce taxes on small businesses and on families.
Thank you. Now the same question, candidate Novotny, I will repeat it. In the past few years, the price of groceries, auto insurance, and more have risen. The state of Minnesota has increased its spending. What are your views on current state tax policies? What can be improved?
Well, I want to say as the $18 billion surplus, that's not a present tense, that's a past tense. We had an $18 billion surplus. At the end of this biennium, Office of Management budget says we will have a structural imbalance, which is a fancy way of saying we're going to be broke. Now, the rainy day fund has been replenished, and it is at the statutorily set limits. That being said, we spent the money. We spent the $18 billion surplus. We raised taxes and fees another $10 billion. We had an overall increase in spending of almost 40% in one session alone. Now, I don't know how we're going to make up that $18 billion surplus. We're either going to have to raise taxes or we're going to have to cut. And that's a choice that Minnesotans are going to have to make. Just like you do in your house, we're going to have to make that choice. And if we raise taxes, that'll only exacerbate the problems with groceries, with everything else. Businesses don't pay taxes from the standpoint that if you put another fee on them, they just have to pass that fee on, and that snowballs. So if you want to cut consumer prices, one of the things you have to do is cut government spending.
Thank you. Now I have a very detailed question, but the point is going to be about public information on dog breeders. And this will start with candidate Novotny. Thousands of dogs are bred and raised by commercial breeders in Minnesota. People may pay thousands for a purebred puppy. The state licenses and inspects these dog breeders, yet the inspection and enforcement records are classified as private rather than public. Should this be changed to allow the public access to the information on conditions in which the puppy was raised? Candidate Novotny.
Well, that's a new one. I know there was talk about having a animal board, a separate department at the state put together. It would be very cost prohibitive, I believe. And working for the sheriff's office, we did do quite a bit of inspections and follow up on animal welfare complaints with different organizations. I was part of one of the first dogfight investigations that took place up in Baldwin Township. So working with the Humane Society of Minnesota in an enforcement capacity has been something that I've done, and I believe in strongly will. As a farmer, I believe that the ethical treatment of animals is important. As far as the data and what's available for breeders, boy, I'm going to have to find out more about that and be happy to work with you.
Thank you. Candidate Bolin, a detailed question again about public information and dog breeders was submitted. Thousands of dogs are bred and raised by commercial breeders in Minnesota. People may pay thousands for a purebred puppy. The state licenses and inspects these dog breeders, yet the inspection and enforcement records are classified as private rather than public. Should this be changed to allow the public access to information on the conditions in which that puppy was raised?
I have animals. I have pets. One of those pets I happened to find in an alley in Detroit while I was out there temporarily. And so we have that kitten, and she's brought us a lot of joy. And so I recognize the sacrifices that people make and the very noble the noble effort that people make to raise pets, especially those that they find either on the streets or in shelters. I believe that this information should be made public. Now, that said, it should be made public in a way that follows due process so that nobody's personal information is being put out there without, going before some sort of body. But yes, I do think that information should be public because people have the right to know if they are buying animals from somebody who is engaging in unethical processes.
Thank you. I have another detailed question that was submitted, and the topic is about insurance coverage and mandating insurance coverage. And this will be candidate Bolin first. Pain management is often a major healthcare expense. Some approaches to addressing pain include non-drug approaches like acupuncture. Currently, acupuncture is covered by some insurance companies, but not all. Would you support a bill that mandates insurance coverage for acupuncture as a treatment for pain?
Right now in the legislature, we don't have too many physicians. We don't have too many scientists at all. As a matter of fact, I think there's only 2 physicians in the entire legislature, and one of them is going to be going to Congress. So we don't have people that can speak to this in an informed way. I know as a physician that we have a major crisis when it comes to opioids, and this is something that we need to address. Will acupuncture work? That is a medical question. That is something that needs to be left for the scientists. I believe that pain is very complex. That's my professional opinion as a doctor. And so there are going to be instances in which people get relief from things like acupuncture, and in that case, it should be covered. But we really need to listen to the experts here and find whether this is going to be a cost-effective approach for Minnesota insurers. I generally do not like mandates on insurance companies.
Thank you. And the same complex question for candidate Novotny, and it's about mandating insurance coverage. Pain management is often a major healthcare expense. Some approaches to addressing pain include non-drug approaches like acupuncture. Currently, acupuncture is covered by some insurance companies, but not all. Would you support a bill that mandates insurance coverage for acupuncture as a treatment for pain?
Another question that's haven't heard anything from, but I will tell you that I agree with Mr. Bolin that mandates are something that's very important, that you just don't take lightly. I believe that if you're on private insurance, that is something that you should negotiate and have that as an optional coverage from your insurance. So that being mandated, no, I would not back that.
And now a more general question about working with others. We'll start with candidate Novotny. Which one issue do you think is most important to work on with legislators across the aisle?
Well, as I said before, my specialty down there is public safety. I will tell you that it's something I am proud of the fact that both of the omnibus bills for public safety in 2024 were passed with my recommendation. The first on the policy omnibus bill was passed with 134 yes votes, and I encourage that. Worked with Chair Moeller to have good legislation that made sense and protected victims and prevented further crime. Recommended a yes vote on the budget omnibus bill for public safety. Yes, I take pride in that we did work together and come up with common sense, good solutions that did what we were supposed to do. Public safety used to be a bipartisan committee in the state, and I hope we get back to that at some point.
Thank you. Candidate Bolin, which one issue do you think is most important to work on with legislators across the aisle?
whether you're a Republican or an independent or a Democrat, you have family members. A few years ago, my mom developed breast cancer, and she needed to take time off of work, and she needed to have surgery, and it was an absolute nightmare. Fortunately, I had the ability to be there with her hand in hand while she was going through one of the most traumatic moments of her life. Last month, my grandma was in the hospital. She needed somebody there. Paid family medical leave is absolutely critical for people in our state. And Republicans are going to come at you and they're going to say, we can't afford it, we can't do it. Bull. There are so many other countries that have been able to manage doing this, and we need to get real and understand that we have families in this state who should not have their quality of life dictated by a ledger. We need to find a way to get it done. I believe this is something that is very popular, and we can do it.
And I think we just have time for one more question. Are we okay? All right, and this one is on businesses, and we'll start with candidate Bolin. Many businesses are finding it hard to fill openings for positions. Do you have any ideas on how the state might help with this problem?
Well, it depends on the business, I think, that's struggling to fill positions. When we're talking about corporations like McDonald's or Burger King, they need to pony up and pay what people are going to work for. I mean, if you pay $8, $9, $10 an hour, close to the minimum wage, yeah, don't be surprised when the only people who are applying for your work are teenagers or people straight out of high school. When we're talking about mid-level jobs or jobs that are paying $25, $30 an hour, if you're having trouble filling those positions, one of the problems you're probably going to be running into is that you're competing with corporations that are able to provide benefits, and that's just not realistic for small businesses. And so this is an area where if we have the ability, which I do believe we do, have the ability to make sure that everybody can afford quality health insurance, and that insurance is made affordable by the state, the small businesses are not going to run to those kinds of problems competing with large corporations.
And candidate Novotny, many businesses are finding it hard to fill openings for positions. Do you have any ideas on how the state might help with this problem?
The state, through the college system and the high school programs, are responding to the need of the businesses by doing things like yesterday. I was at the St. Cloud Airport. There was a ribbon cutting that the St. Cloud Tech is doing that will help train airplane mechanics. My wife is HR director at the local nursing home. She works with the high schools to bring in high school students and do training, get them the preliminary training that they need, and work with the Anoka Votech so that these young people can get into the profession and stay in the profession. That's how they can help. We can, through the MinSCU system, start providing students that are, opportunities for training that fill these businesses' needs. The business environment will always need different things with changing technology, and they just need to change with that.
Thank you. We've learned a lot in this half hour, and now it's time for the wrap-up. And I would like to allow each of you 90 seconds to speak to the voters about your candidacy for House seat. This one starts with candidate Novotny.
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this, and for the city staff that is here to make the broadcast and videotape possible. And I'd like to thank everyone at home that is watching or will watch for making the effort to be informed. If you have any other questions, feel free to get a hold of me, or if you have any questions for Mr. Bolin, we'd be more than happy to talk to you and become more familiar with you if that's what you need. As we go forward with this election, the choice is going to be clear for the state of Minnesota. Do we want to continue with unsustainable tax and spend policies? Or are we going to make a conservative choice like any family would if they cannot meet the rising cost? I was born, as I said, in a small family. We ended up losing the family farm in the early 80s because of the farm crisis. I've been through hard times. I've been through tough times, and I know what that's like. But you come out on the other side stronger and healthier. There's going to be tough times in the state of Minnesota. We'll have to make some decisions, and I believe I'm the person that can help guide the state through in those situations. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from candidate Bolin, and you have an opportunity to speak for 90 seconds to the voters about your candidacy.
Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters, to all those who have helped facilitate this forum, and also to those of you who are watching at home. My candidacy is about a values-based approach to governance. That means that we take into consideration the needs and the aspirations of young people, of families, and of older people, and that we first consider that, and then we figure out a way to make it work fiscally. We cannot continue with this Republican approach of saying point blank, before we even consider something, that we can't do it. That is not how we make lives better for individuals and families in our state. And so, just like when I brought up my mom struggling with breast cancer, or I could bring up my sister who had to deal with the harrowing choice of having to have an abortion, which she would not have been able to have in Texas, and she had to make this choice because the baby was unviable. So this is what I mean by a values-based approach to governance. It's common sense, it's considering what people talk about at their kitchen tables, and it's not this doom and gloom, we can't do it, it's unaffordable, there's no way to get it done. No, we can do it, we can work together, and we can make lives better for every individual and every family within this district and within this state.
Thank you, candidates, and I'll just do my wrap-up off camera since we are limited to one camera in this facility. The League of Women Voters thanks the candidates for speaking to the voters on the issues that may affect them in Minnesota House District 30B. You can follow all of the forums by going to our website, LWVABCMN.org. And you can also go to Vote 411, which is sponsored by the League of Women Voters, where many candidates post answers to questions, and there's links as well to all the taped forums we have done. The general election is November 5th, but many people are beginning to vote early. You would have to contact your city hall to learn about voting hours at your local city hall or Anoka County Elections Office in the city of Anoka for other opportunities for early voting or absentee voting. To be updated on any voting issue, go to minvotes.gov, which takes you directly to the Minnesota Secretary of State website. You can view a sample ballot, determine if your registration is current, learn where you vote, and get your questions answered. If you're interested in the League of Women Voters, please go to our website, LWVABCMN.org. We accept people of all genders and ages over 16. Your vote is your voice. Make your voice heard by voting in the general election. Thank you.